Okay, good morning. So this is my third day in Bogota, in Colombia, and I thought I'd make a video diary, basically to just document about how I feel about the documentary that I'm making, how it's going, what I did each day, successes, failures, difficulties. So the third day was our first day filming, which was yesterday. And it went really well, actually. We were really lucky. We went to a sexual health clinic called Pro Familia, and they were really helpful. You know, we hadn't emailed them prior to turning up. Tatiana spoke to the receptionist, who then put us through to another lady who could give us authorization to A, film in the building, and B, try and speak to a psychologist. She was actually a doctor of psychology. Her name was Dali, and she was really helpful. So the interview took about an hour. We interviewed Dali. Tatiana had to translate because Dali didn't speak a lot of English, but it was fine. That's probably why it took slightly longer. And interestingly, it is quite frustrating not being able to understand what the person's saying when you're interviewing them. So what we had to do was write a list of questions that I wanted to ask, that Tatiana asked in Spanish, and Dali responded in Spanish, and then Tatiana translated to me in English what she'd said and the gist of it. So that went really well. And then the lady who authorised everything, she then put us through to a journalist who spoke English, which was brilliant. She was the communications officer at Pro Familia. And she told me a lot of interesting things, not just about Pro Familia, but basically she said that they did have a massive problem of teenage pregnancy in Colombia. It was definitely to do with the attitude of the people, the teenagers, the mothers, the girls and the boys. She said it was very much to do with the macho culture in Colombia, which is interestingly what we thought. And she said it was very much to do with the way girls had been brought up, mothers had been brought up. Women kind of thought that their role in life was to be a mother and to be looked after by men, and that hadn't really evolved in Colombia, unlike the West, where women kind of seem to have the same responsibilities as men. Here it's the other way around. Women know their place in the home and as a mother. So that was really interesting.
I don't know, woman here think like many years ago. I think that is a cultural thing, you know. It's I don't know how do you say machismo in English.
Macho culture.
Okay, but it's something like that. Our country is very conservative, so it's very complicated, our job here.
She also told me off the record and agreed to an private interview about journalism. She said that it was extremely difficult as a journalist in Colombia, and she said that, quote, "We have a lot of enemies." So interestingly, and I'm reading a book by Alfredo Milano, who's a Colombian journalist who was exiled from Colombia after paramilitaries threatened his life, basically. He received death threats, basically, towards the end, and he had to exile to Spain. And this book he's written, which is called The Displaced, is the translation in English, is basically little snippets of stories. So each chapter is a story about a different person that's been displaced. Very interestingly, Yara said she didn't go into detail, but she basically said it is very difficult as a journalist still in Colombia. And she does a lot of her work through social media. And that seems to be the safest way and also the most accessible way to a lot of people to receive the journalism. But she was talking from Pro Familia's point of view. So she said she sent out a lot of information on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and that was the way the young people were absorbing the information and becoming aware of the situation. Without explaining everything from the interviews the gist I'm getting is that there is a massive awareness about sexual education in Colombia. 98% of children are schooled in sex education. They learn about it at school. Admittedly, Dali said it was only about once a year that they learnt about it, which is fairly irregular, but from memory, I think it was pretty similar for us at school. We only sort of had sex education classes very sporadically. So it isn't an issue of education, although Dali seemed to think it is, so that's something I need to investigate more. She kind of said that it isn't, but then it is an issue of education. Whether she means social education, I think that's what she was getting at. But there were some very interesting statistics that we found at Pro Familia as well. So 56% of 15 to 19-year-olds in Bogota get pregnant. That's a massive amount. And 58% don't use a condom the first time they have sex. So, you know, that's almost half the population of that age group in this city, which is a lot of people. I mean, 8 million, I can't do the maths, but there's a lot of people not using protection. And 9% of people, that's just not even teenagers, use condoms. 5% take the pill. So there is a massive population out there of fertile women who inevitably get pregnant, and there are 1.8 million births every year in Bogota. No wonder their population's on the increase. So it is a massive issue, and that's what we found from day one of filming.